Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Ryan Pudenz, founder and managing partner at Merit Management Group. They specialize in acquiring small to mid-sized construction businesses, focusing on enhancing legacies, empowering futures, and ensuring smooth transitions for owners. They have a proven track record in revitalizing operations and improving profitability, demonstrating their commitment to strengthening the construction industry. Now, Ryan has been instrumental in shaping Merit Management's strategic direction, drawing on over 20 years of experience, including a role as a sales trainer at Service Corporation International. His background in sales and training has helped him become an effective leader who understands both the people and process sides of business growth. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, the founder and managing partner of Merit Management Group, Ryan. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Yeah, great to be on and appreciate you having me.
So, Ryan, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of your work history before founding Merit. And as I understand, after college, there was just one stop, Service Corp International. Tell us about that and why you stayed there so long.
Yeah, so a quick funny story. I was at the University of Northern Iowa and thought I wanted to get into sales and had accepted a position with a office solutions company, selling copy machines and that type of thing, printers, and moved to Ames, Iowa to move in with my fiance at the time, my now wife, and found out they called me and shared with me that they put a hiring freeze on. And so I went from having employment to not having employment and ran into a guy that worked for Service Corporation International, started talking to him, and next thing I knew, I flew out to St. Louis, Missouri, and interviewed, and a month later was hired, and 18 years later and 5 stops later, I was still working for SCI, and fortunately had made it back to Iowa once we had our first child and got to be by family, and it was a great ride. I really enjoyed it. I stuck there because they had a great culture. They took good care of me. Obviously, I put in the work and proved myself. We started in St. Louis, and then we were moved to Phoenix, and then to Las Vegas, then to Dallas, then to Houston, and eventually they allowed me to come back to Iowa and set up shop here. And so really enjoyed my time there. Learned a lot about business management, learned a lot about sales, learned a lot about employees and people and how to handle them, and have been able to use that now in my current endeavors.
So what does Service Corporation International do?
Yeah, they're the largest owner and operator of funeral homes and cemeteries in the world. And so when I first started with SCI, for short, they were acquiring other consolidators. So there was really a group of 3 to 4 companies, and eventually SCI bought those companies and then transitioned more into strategic acquisitions based off of market share footprint, and started to buy some of your mom and pop funeral homes and put them into their portfolio and manage them the way they run their other locations. And so that's why I moved around. As they would acquire, I would get moved and help get things set up, get leadership in place, and deliver to targets.
So it doesn't sound like so much of a sales role then.
No, it was, I focused on our sales growth, but with that, it encompassed all aspects of the business. I worked hand in hand with the operational leader, and so very involved on both operations and sales. There was a lot of crossover there from both parties, and so really got exposed to just business in general, even though my title had sales in it. But really, it was help managing the business and grow the businesses that were in our area.
Gotcha. Okay, so from Service Corporation International to managing funeral homes across the country, how did the idea for starting Merit Management Group come about?
So my wife is an interior designer. She has her own interior design business. And when we moved back to Iowa, obviously that opened up a whole nother book of business for her because she had been doing this from afar and has a big network back here in Iowa. And so started to get calls. And then, the question from the potential clients was, do you know a good contractor to use? And finally, one day I said to her, we're foolish to keep passing business along. We could get the design plus do the work. And so we stumbled across a local remodel company here in Des Moines that was looking to sell. And my wife and I bought that and ran that operation and really got it going. And fortunately for her, she didn't have to do a lot of design. They had designers and kind of were self-sufficient, but was another resource for her in her business. And what I started to recognize was very similar to the funeral industry, skilled trades. There's a lot of baby boomers, that silver tsunami is there. And, a lot of these folks are really great skilled trades individuals. And that's how they started. And then demand picked up and they turned themselves into a business and, really didn't have an exit plan. And so I saw an opportunity for something that I believe can't be replaced by AI, that, housing market's never going to get caught up. There'll be ebbs and flows, but we're always running at a deficit there. And, from a labor force, you don't have all the labor that's needed. And so demand is there. It's being able to supply the services. And so when I wanted to get away from the corporate world, started to formulate the Merit idea and put into place our team, our infrastructure, and target skilled trade businesses. And, large private equity has done similar. I think we separate ourselves because we still have that small family feel and we like to keep that. And so, owners that have spent 30, 40 years building this business can gain the confidence knowing we're going to come in and not change everything day one. What our goal is to take, a successful business and get it thriving and be able to inject resources that they haven't had previously.
So tell me a little bit more about the portfolio. You're talking about, home services, trades. What are we looking at specifically?
So we have two HVAC companies. We have another HVAC company that we're currently under LOI for. And then we have three remodel companies. We have a flooring retailer. And then we have a power equipment supplier as well as a cabinet manufacturing business. So really target within those businesses, both residential and commercial. So we do work on residential new construction. We do work on residential remodel. And then we do work on commercial new construction and commercial tenant improvements or remodeling on the commercial side as well.
Is this all close to you geographically in the state of Iowa?
Yeah, we're all in the Midwest. We have location in Minneapolis and then in the Des Moines metro area.
Okay. Are there plans to expand to other geographies or to kind of broaden the scope of sort of these home services, or do you kind of like the spots that you're playing in now?
Yeah, we like the Midwest. We like kind of that middle-sized market. I think we'll continue to stay in what we would call a middle market with middle-sized, medium-sized businesses. But, we want to expand our footprint. We want to get across the Midwest. We've looked at a couple businesses in the South as well. We're not opposed to that. But I think it comes down to more as we start to meet owners and look at opportunities, it comes down to a fit in our ability to see where we can enhance that business as well as supply the resources necessary to it to help it continue to grow. And right now, the Midwest, we feel like we know really well, but we're not opposed to expanding past that.
And so what is it that you're looking for specifically in an acquisition? Is it the owner is staying on as an operator for a period of time? Is it a certain size?
When we look at a business, what we're really looking at upfront is brand and reputation. So our average portfolio company is 32 years old. And what I tell people is I don't have 32 years to build a brand, but hopefully we can acquire one and, and make it even better. So the first thing we're looking at is what is brand reputation? What is their overall reputation throughout the market that they serve? And then from there, we look at customer concentration. And if it makes sense to where the business has been spread out over multiple accounts, we'll continue to pursue that. We do come across acquisitions where, the owner started it and he's the point of contact. And so we run a risk if we were to acquire that, owner's not there, what's the tie to that business? So we make sure there's a good brand. We make sure that it's a reputable company. And then the next is what's the split of business and how can we supplement that business with the businesses that we already own, whether that be the company we're buying can buy from one of our other companies at a lower cost. Great. That's a big advantage for us. If we're in the same market and now we can share accounts and, one offers one service and the other offers the other, we know or can go into an acquisition with some pretty good confidence that we're able to grow that revenue just simply by tying some of our accounts together. So we look at that from an owner standpoint. We love it when an owner stays on if it's a fit. And, normally we don't close on business if we're not a good fit for the owner and vice versa. So we like when owners stay on. We generally don't have them in a leadership role. We have them more, what did you enjoy doing when you were owning the company? And a lot of them, I liked going out talking to the accounts. Great. They're great ambassadors for us. We leverage that. And then we take the real fun stuff of payroll, payables, and people off their plates so they get to just go have some fun and keep promoting the brand and help us continue to grow. So
you're describing the dream of so many founders. Take all that administrative stuff off my plate so I can focus on the work I love doing. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah. And, it's interesting, Anthony, when we go to talk to an owner and start talking about the acquisition side of things, and I always ask them, what would you do to grow the business? And what's interesting is they'll all tell you exactly what they would do to grow the business. And my next question is, well, why don't you do it? And I'm tired. I don't want to. I'm comfortable where we're at. We've done a good job and it took a lot to get to this point. And so, we kind of build off that conversation. It's like, well, let us do that and you go do the fun stuff and help keep us relevant in the community. People know your face. They know your name. It's your name still on the business. And, we're happy to do that and set up an agreement to do so.
So when you're coming into a new opportunity, are you traditionally buying the entire company 100%? And are you taking over sort of operational control then?
Yeah. So we do 100% acquisition, and then we run as the operator. We're a little unique in that at the Merit level, what we really are is a support arm. So we have a CFO with an accounting department. We have head of marketing with a marketing department. We have HR. We have new business development. We have directors of operations, and then we have recruiting. And so we're able to acquire a company, bring them into our ecosystem, and now they get access to all these services that in some cases they didn't have previously, or it was a limited exposure to them. And now our group comes in, we help with local management. Generally speaking, when we acquire a business, there is an employee there that gets promoted into a leadership role. Our director of operations, they work directly with that leader and help them understand what we look at from a business perspective, and then start to build out their business plan and how they can use the resources here at Merit that we have to help them speed up that process and become even more successful. We're very hands-on on the operation and sales aspect of every company that we acquire.
Can you maybe point to a specific example of something recently where you guys have come in and really helped to pull an operational lever that's helped to advance the company?
Yeah. So one of our recent acquisitions, mid to end of last year, when we acquired it, the marketing end of what they had done was very limited. And from a cost perspective, just simply leaning on vendors hadn't really been a conversation. Well, we were fortunate. We have another business in the same skill trade, and we're able to go to our vendors, create savings right off the top on our goods. We were able to create savings from a spend that they had done on an administrative side, because now it's a fractional spend. They get the full service, but our employees are divided over 8 different companies versus just one. And so, we use a combination of our own debt and equity, and then we bring in investor dollars. And one of the ways that we can help a company perform better and we can give better returns to our investors is because we are able to fractionalize costs to these businesses. We are able to leverage some scale and create savings from a goods side of things. And then we're able to push the revenue lever with our marketing and our sales background.
What's your holding strategy? How long do you want to hold the companies? Is there a roll-up coming? How do you guys think about this sort of long term?
Yeah, so we model everything on a 5-year hold. And our approach is at that 5-year hold. First and foremost, what we'd prefer to do is do a recapitalization and buy out our investors, so that way we're 100% owners. There could be an opportunity, because we run everything on syndicated fund structure, to be able to roll all of our syndicated funds into one big fund. But our hope is to hold for the long term, but for the short term for the investor, and be able to then have 100% ownership.
You want to help your investors cash out within a 5-year time period. Your goal beyond that is merit to hold on to these for the long term.
Yeah. That's correct.
What are you looking for in an investor?
So we do require accredited investors, but really what we look for in an investor is someone that understands our thesis, our story. And we've been very fortunate. We really only target retail investors at this point. And when we sit down and tell our story, they're able to see the vision and also understand the need. And so, our first set of investors have now kind of introduced us to our second set, and second into third. Word travels, and people have been pleased with our performance. But really, it's someone that, is invested in their 401k, they're invested in the stock market, but are looking at what are some alternative investments I can make. Real estate's always nice, but it's real estate. It is what it is. These businesses create extreme upside, in my opinion, because of the EBITDA that we buy it at and what we believe we can grow it to, and then exit at a price that's very beneficial to the investor.
What have you found have been sort of the biggest growth levers for you once you acquire a company?
Yeah, so you can only save your way to a certain profit, right? At some point, you run out of savings to get, but we're able to create savings right off the bat. But really, our growth lever comes with our marketing department and then our sales approach. I think sometimes when you have legacy companies, you get tired eyes looking at the approach. And so we bring in a different spin on how we think we should market and how we think we can grow sales. And then, bring in fresh sales folks that can help do that. And so I think that's the biggest lever for our growth is, of course, up front, we're going to create some savings, whether that be on goods or from our resources here. But the real lever comes when our marketing department gets instilled and we start to get in through our sales approach and training.
So I'm going to guess, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here, that marketing involves a lot of online marketing, getting to the top of Google, showing up on, somebody's mobile phone when they're searching, when they want that service. And then sales, there's probably a particular technique or strategy that you're teaching to each of your portfolio companies. Hey, we have found that X, Y, and Z, sort of taking these steps is really helpful.
Yeah. So from the marketing side of things, we have 2 individuals that are in charge of social media and making sure that we're relevant and present on social media. We have a content creator and website developer. So we always refresh websites. If a logo needs refresh, we'll do that as well. And then we have a gentleman that goes out and does live shoots on all of our projects. Our type of work, people have to see it and it's got to speak to them. And so we're constantly refreshing content on live work that's going on and completed projects, and that helps us out. From the sales side of thing, really, my background being focused on sales, where I think, I guess you could say we set ourselves apart, but I don't think it's a novel concept on anything. But in sales, it's pretty straightforward. The person that follows up the most generally wins. And so everything we preach is speed to lead. If someone calls in, we need to get in front of them, and we need to make sure we're following back to get a decision with them. And, you earn that right by going out, talking to them, understanding their problem, diagnosing a solution, and then, building a rapport to where they feel as though you've got my best interest. I think you're a reputable company. This is the people I want to do business with. But so many times in all sales, but especially in skilled trade sales, it's if I don't get the yes right there, then I move on to the next one. And, we hear it all the time. Someone came out to look at my project and I never heard from them again. And we don't want to be that group. And so we're constantly preaching, just follow up, follow up, follow up. And that's all based off of your ability to build rapport and value and what we have to offer on that initial meeting.
You've probably got some tech in place, some CRMs and whatnot, and some automated follow-up sequences, or at least ding the sales rep to tell them that they need to make that call again. Yeah.
Yeah, and that becomes a little bit of a challenge from a merit level, because every company has their own CRM and lead management system and point of sale system. And really it has to be that way because they're so specialized. And so it's hard to find one program that encompasses, cabinet manufacturing along with HVAC install. It's hard to find. And so each one has their own system. And then what we're able to do is generate rolled up reports by getting them together. And Tim in our accounting department does a good job in marketing from a CRM standpoint of that.
So you're able to allow each of the acquired entities to maintain sort of that CRM structure that they've got in place, because like you said, the tool that they're using is so specialized for their industry. It has the different feature sets that they need. So what you have to do is come in and figure out, okay, how can we get the data out of there to make sense from a reporting perspective and let us know that we're hitting our metrics. And if we're not, let us know kind of where that coaching needs to take place.
Yep, exactly. And so from a financial perspective, some of these systems that we have drive our financial statement. So that becomes another challenge, is to do exactly what you just said, to be able to harvest that data, roll it up, and make sure that we have accurate reporting. The advantage, though, if you wanted to point out the biggest advantage of everyone having their own CRM, is we're able to extract those leads. We keep them at the business, obviously, but extract them and load them into our merit database. And what that allows our marketing team to do is take the leads from our HVAC company and now be able to market to them for cabinetry and flooring and remodeling services as well. And vice versa. Our remodeling companies now go into the pool of merit leads, and they might get marketed for HVAC installation and furnace installation, whatever that may be. And so we're able to, now these businesses that were kind of on their own island, make them a part of a bigger group, and their lead pool now becomes a part of a bigger group and allows us to offer, more programs to more customers between all of our companies combined.
I'd like to hear a little bit more, Ryan, about what you've learned from due diligence. When you go in and you're thinking about acquiring a company, you're doing research on them, you're looking at their financials, you're taking a look under the hood, like what's the state of this company? I want to know what I'm getting into and if this seems like a healthy company or not. And that can be a difficult process. Anybody who's ever been through it, it's hard to spot all the warts and wrinkles from whatever is being presented to you. Is there anything in particular that you've kind of learned through experience in the process where you're like, oh, here's something that we do now that we didn't know to do when we first started?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've, conditioned or trained ourselves to do is to remain disciplined, in the sense that if we see a red flag, generally speaking, there's a red flag. And so, if you're getting surface level answers on something that you think doesn't look right, the chances are they're trying to hide something. And so we continue to dig, and, we try to safeguard ourselves with that. We do a pretty in-depth due diligence here at our merit office, but we also hire externally another company that will do the same. So that way we can cross compare notes and make sure we're not missing something and vice versa. And so we've learned, again, that if something doesn't look right, it's probably not right unless there's a clear explanation from the beginning. But more times than not, that explanation is very surface level, and it probably tells you everything you need to know.
I think that's a great reminder. I mean, anybody who's ever gone into a deal, you get excited about it, right? I mean, this is fun. Like, let's grow the business. That we see opportunities here, and sometimes you see these flags and you try to explain them away, or it's not a big deal, or, even if it is true, we can still work around that. And so it's great to hear, from your experience, somebody who's been through this multiple times. You're like, no, if it looks like a flag, it's probably a flag. Time to step away.
And I think human nature also is, it might be a flag, but I can fix it. And I think you have to keep the approach of assume you can't fix anything. Read the business as though it's going to continue as it is. And if there's a red flag there, that, pretty much if you aren't getting the answer that you probably need to get, which is some details behind it, that's going to tell you what you need to know.
Yeah. Ryan, if you had to recommend one resource to our listeners, a book, a course, a podcast that's been really helpful for you, what would it be?
Let me think here. Mine's a little hard because I think my greatest resource was my corporate life. I got exposed to so many different businesses and across the country, and multiple former owners and leaders that approach things differently. And so, I really lend myself back to that training as I'm working here at Merit, is what I learned from my time with SCI. That really helped me gain a business knowledge and be able to, look at a business. What am I looking for, and what do I think is possible with them? And so, that's not the answer to your question that you're looking for, but that really is my number one resource. Was, the people that helped me the most are the people that I was paired with and really asked questions. And I wasn't afraid to say, I don't know the answer, so train me and teach me, and still try to keep that today. But, that was my learning ground, was my 18 years of being able to see live, day to day, real scenarios, and to be able to inquire and learn and listen and remember and act on what I was told would be the best approach. And there's a lot of trial and error in that.
Well, I think there's a ton of value in what you just shared there for our listeners, Ryan, because sometimes we get sort of distracted with, what's the cool new book everybody's talking about, or the podcast du jour where I'm going to, level up my game. And, hearing your story, it's like, man, I learned from a lot of great folks that I worked with. Like I was just super involved in my job and asking questions and not afraid to admit when I didn't know something, and actively asking for help, asking to be trained on that thing. And man, what a great way to learn. I can think of no better way myself to learn than on the job. Like, it's one thing to learn theory from a book or to hear somebody else in a podcast talk about the way that they would approach something. It's great to get those new ideas, but man, hands-on, roll up your sleeve, get your fingernails dirty, get right in there and learn. I mean, I think that's the best way, period.
And I think there's a lot of people, even today, because I'm still new to Merit, and, I think I have a good business knowledge, but always learning. I still run into people today that, I meet them, they've been very successful in their line of work, and they offer, if I can ever help you, I'm happy to do so. And I think sometimes when you're getting going or starting to learn what it is you want to pursue, you feel as though those people are too busy to talk with you. And it's amazing how many people out there will actually spend the time with you and want you to be successful. Even if you're a competitor, they're willing to share what's helped them. And I think sometimes we assume they won't do that. And I would encourage people, reach out to professionals in the line of work you're looking for. And you'd be amazed how many people will spend some time with you and share some pretty good secrets that'll save you a lot of time of making your own mistakes.
Oh, that's a gold nugget right there. You don't know if you don't ask. Don't assume that even if you guys are, traditional competitors, that, there isn't a bond to be formed there. I
Yep.
like that. Ryan, I want to shift gears a bit and would love to hear about a serious challenge that you've overcome, whether it's personal or professional. How'd you get through it? What did you learn coming through the other side?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted on it earlier with my challenge of thinking I had my first career set up, coming out of college and getting a 3-day notice that I no longer had that job. And I tell you what, when you're young and you're excited to get out of college and get into the workforce, that's somewhat of an ego boost. Now all of a sudden I'm starting all over and have to find something and figure out what I'm going to do. And then I would say that challenge grew once I got hired by Service Corporation International. You're in the funeral and cemetery business. And I never saw myself being in funeral and cemetery business. And the challenge was I needed to learn it and learn it to the best of my ability. I had resources around me and training around me, but really at the end of the day, that type of business is getting in, skinning your knees and figuring it out. And so that was a big challenge. And I will say there were times where you question, is this what I'm really supposed to be doing? Is this worth it? And, in the end, here we are 19 years later, and I had a great career in the corporate world. And now I feel as though I've started, to form a really nice company and can have a great second career. But really that challenge of just second guessing what you're doing and, am I cut out for this? And, you hear it all the time. People quit right before they see the reward. And I kept telling myself that, and I was able to see some rewards. And, there's days now starting my own company where you question, is it worth the grind? And you just got to trust it is. It's just continuing to fight through those challenges and really taking care of what's in between your ears and what you're saying to yourself.
Let's say a little bit more about that. You said something interesting there. You're kind of asking yourself the question, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I'm curious from your perspective, was that kind of more of like a existential, like, is this like the purpose of what I'm here on earth? Or, man, this is just too freaking hard. Maybe there's like an easier path out there.
Yeah, I think mine was, I felt as though I wanted to be in business and in business management and then, really liked the sales avenue. And there were times where at starting out, you feel as though you're just always playing catch up. I don't know what I don't know. And so then I started to question, is business and being a business leader really what I'm made out to be? And then shift to the sales side. Am I really cut out to hear no more than I hear yes? And, it's hard to get in front of somebody and pitch, and let alone pitch by your cemetery space from me. And so, those were the questions that I had and went through my head was, am I equipped to be a leader, which is what I've always envisioned myself as? And am I willing to put in that work? Because, I always felt like I was playing catch up to get up to the people that were in those roles just from an experience standpoint. And then what you tend to find out is experience isn't everything, right? It's your ability to handle difficult situations, to handle yourself through that. And, that's leadership, because now the people that see how you handle it realize that, that's the right person to be in front of a group and show them how we handle adversity and how we handle success and how we can continue to grow employees that have the desire to grow and be successful because they want to emulate the leader that they're ahead of. And, there were plenty of times before I got to that I just questioned if I was cut out for that.
How do you work through that? I mean, you talked about taking care of that gray matter between your ears. That doubt that you're talking about, that questioning of your own abilities, especially when you're getting a lot more no's than yeses, that's common. But how did you figure out to pull through that? What's been a helpful tool or process for you?
Keep going. I mean, eventually, if you get enough at bats, you're going to get a hit, right? And once you get a hit, you get confidence. And once confidence grows, the hits come more often. And what I kept telling myself was, I just got to keep going. I just have to go back to it. And if I'm not cut out for it, what I don't want to do is tell myself I'm not. You start to question that. They have to make that decision at the end of the day, and they being my employer. And so, now owning my own company, same thing. It's like, every day you just got to go back to it, and you got to keep pushing forward, because there's no sense in going back and there's no sense in stopping. And when it's time to stop, the stop sign will hit you, right? You'll be done. But for right now, just keep going. And I think, that's how I got through that, was just continuing to tell myself, learn, but keep stepping forward, and trust that, eventually it'll click. And it did. The light bulb went off and you go, okay, now I got this.
Yeah, one foot in front of the other is what I'm hearing you say. And I
That's
hear
right.
that from a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of C-suite level folks. Man, it can be really hard. And it's a hardness that people from the outside don't see. And so hearing you give voice to it, and like, I don't know. I get up and I take another swing. I put my foot in front of the other foot and I just keep going. That's the recipe, right? And like you said,
Yeah.
at some point, if you're supposed to stop, you'll know the stop sign hits you in the face. But just because it gets slow and hard, that's not the time. That's the time to double down.
Yep.
Behind every great business is a great team. My experience, Ryan, nodding your head like you agree. What's been your strategy for attracting and then retaining good folks?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, my experience has been, people look for experience within the field that they currently oversee, and I didn't always find that to be the best approach. What I looked for to build a team was attitude and effort, and I believed I could teach them the role as needed to be teach. Now, granted, there are some people that it requires some background. I'm not saying that in some positions, but I think at the end of the day, the more you can do to really test someone's ability to handle, what is your attitude? Just as you asked me, when something goes wrong, what's your attitude when something goes right? Attitude and effort to me go a long way in helping a company be successful and a team to build a culture, because it's contagious. And next thing you know, you have a team full of doers, and are patting each other on the back and celebrating wins and successes and lifting people up and each other up when things aren't going well. And you need that. And so in order to build out a successful team, that's been my experience, is I try to find out, how can I figure out what their attitude is on a daily basis? And most people will show you 2 minutes into your interview. And, how do you judge what effort can get out of them? And that's, to me, based off background. What have they done previously? How did they work themselves through it? How did they work themselves to be successful, keep that job, get promoted, whatever that may be? And those answers will tell you a lot towards the effort that they're willing to put in.
That was going to be my question, is how do you ascertain that in an interview? And so you like asking questions about something that they had to work through in a previous job. Give me that example and kind of talk me through the steps that you took. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think on the attitude side, you'll find out a lot just asking, as you think of the places you've worked, what was your favorite culture environment that you worked in, and why? And a lot of times they will tell you, I worked at X and it was my favorite because, you know what, we celebrated, we had a good time, we worked hard, but everybody just really got along and made things happen. Well, they were a part of that as well. And so, generally speaking, they get along because they're positive individuals that have good attitudes, that are looking to celebrate success and helping people when the success isn't there. And so that can tell you a lot right there.
Ryan, do you have any particular daily habits or rituals that you go through, either something to help you start your day or to keep you centered throughout the day?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate. I have a home gym, and so I usually get up about 4 a.m. I try to have a cup of coffee before I have a 6, 4, and 2-year-old before they get going. So I like that morning routine of quietness. It's dark still, so I get some time to just think to myself, and then I try to get in a 45-minute to an hour workout, and get all that done before anybody else in the house is up and going. And really, to me, that's my time to have to myself, to think through, what it is that I did the previous day that helped me be successful, and what I need to do today to make today a success. And so that's really my number one, I guess, go to, is making sure that I have that time to myself. and then I get a workout in, and I try to push myself in a workout, because if I can do that before 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m., and get one of the hardest parts of my day out of the way, I know I'm set up for success the rest of the day.
So if you're up at 4 a.m., what time does that mean you're hitting the sack?
My wife and my friends will tell you I am that guy. 8:30, I'm in bed, and if I see 9 o'clock, it's a late night for me. So I'm very fortunate, Anthony. I can fall asleep like that. So if I lay down and I'm shot at the end of the day. Like I said, between dealing with employees, all good, never bad, and then going home and chasing 3 boys around, and when I put them down, I'm ready to go. It's time to sleep.
Well, what's something fun that you do outside of work, Ryan?
Spend a lot of time with my family. I coach my boys in baseball, do a lot of wrestling with them. My 2 oldest are heavily involved in wrestling. They like that. I don't coach basketball. I love basketball, but I have someone else coach that. I think it's important for your kids to hear from someone else occasionally. And so other people coach that, and then they're involved in football and soccer as well. So my time is eaten up with my family. But, outside of that, really enjoy spending some time with my wife. We like to take vacations. We like to go to dinner. Those things to just kind of get away from the kids, get a little break and recharge, and then go back to being full-time parents and business owners.
What's the best decision you ever made for your business?
The best decision I ever made for my business, outside of just starting the business, which was a huge jump, right? Because that's scary. I had a great role. I made good money, and I could have continued that for the rest of my life and retired and been happy. But, I wanted to challenge myself. And so, the best decision was starting it. The second best decision was putting in our leadership team, because that really sped up our growth, in my opinion. It's a lot on one person. And so I think you have to surround yourself with other people that can see your vision and can help you build it. And so, we built out our infrastructure at the merit level after just one acquisition, but we knew more acquisitions were going to be coming, and we needed to be prepared for it. And I think that sped up the growth of our company, because now we're not hiring roles as we are acquiring. Those roles are in place, and we can hit the ground running day one and help these companies become even more successful, and in turn make Merit a success.
What's your schedule? Are you hoping for one new acquisition a year?
So last year we had 4 acquisitions. This year we're hoping for 3 to 4 acquisitions. We'd love to see us right in that 100 million in revenue by the end of this year with some of the stuff that we have lined up. And we have one that we should close here in the next, I'll call it 30 to 45 days. And then, a couple that we're in conversations with now. So that would help us get to that goal. And, while we set that goal, we also recognize, buying a business is a big commitment. So if it means we can only make one acquisition this year because the other ones didn't make sense, then so be it. We go back to the drawing board and we figure it out. But there's a lot of good businesses out there, and now our name's kind of spread and we're getting approached. So we have a lot of confidence in this year being able to do that 3 to 4 acquisition and grow our top line revenues to a number that we think is realistic.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Let's say that you and I connect again in a year, Ryan, and you're celebrating something. What would you hope that is?
I think it would be that we've accomplished the acquisitions that I just shared with you. I think we're pushing at 120 million in revenue. I think we're looking at some recapitalization on a couple of our businesses that allow us to have 100% ownership and give our investors on those original funds a really nice return. And so now they're looking to continue to invest with us on future endeavors. And I think you fast forward a year from now, those are very realistic and something that we're shooting for.
Mm. What's one thing you wish more people understood about the industry that you play in?
The costs that are behind what goes into, whether it's HVAC, whether it's a remodeling project, cabinetry, flooring. I think some people have an unrealistic expectation. And I always tell folks this, it's because of HGTV. because they go on there and someone redoes their, whole kitchen for $20,000. The fact of the matter is you just can't do that today. Stuff's expensive. And so, when I hear people say, how can you charge that much? It's like, well, we have a building, we have a showroom, we have employees, and things cost money to get. And, we don't want to be the cheapest in town. We never do. We want to be the best in town. And to get the best, you got to pay a little bit more. And so I wish people would just understand, I think there's this, I'm jumping around here. There's this perception of, a blue collared skilled trade job by some people that it's low compensation. It's not. It's a skilled trade. These folks have trainings and certifications, and not everybody can do it, because if they could, nobody would be in remodeling, because everybody just remodeled their own house, right? And so there's a lot of costs that go into getting good people and putting out a good product. And I just don't know that people understand that, or don't realize what the true cost is in today's world. I think they still think back to, well, you're remodeling. When I built this kitchen, I could build it for 10,000. Now you're telling me it's 50,000. Well, some time has passed since then.
Yeah. Just got one more question for you, Ryan. But before I ask it, I want to do two things. First of all, I'm going to invite everyone listening today to hit the follow button on their favorite podcast app, so you can continue to get more great interviews like we've had today with Ryan at Merit Management Group. Ryan, I also want to let people know the best way to either get in touch with you directly or to follow your story or that of Merit.
Yeah, so our website's meritmgt.com. And on there has all the information about our companies and about us and our story, and then also newsletters and investment information for anybody that's interested there. And then they can also shoot me an email. It's ryan@meritmgt.com, and happy to share any information with anybody, whether it relates to Merit or just personal experience.
That's great. And for those folks listening, Merit is one R and one T. We'll have a link to both the website and Ryan's email address in our show notes. But in case you don't have those in front of you, now you know how to get in touch with them. So last question for you, Ryan, as we look to the future. Over the next 2 to 3 years, what exciting changes do you see coming to your industry or industries, kind of across the different construction sectors?
Yeah, I think, hopefully we see some relief on rates. I think that will happen, which will bring up new construction, especially on the residential side and even on the commercial side. So, that starts to increase demand. And, that's exciting to me, because I think we're well positioned to serve that demand and capitalize on that demand. I think the other piece that excites me is, again, we talk about the deficit that we have here on residential homes in the U.S. And so I think you're going to see, as rates start to come down, that demand goes up, and we could start to chip away at that deficit. And that plays really nicely into the businesses that we own. And the other piece that excites me is, as I said at the beginning, this space can't be replaced by AI. It's dependent on human interaction. And I think we're going to continue to see AI take a bigger percentage of jobs and be more day-to-day interaction, but not in this space. And that excites me too, because, we continue to get to have human interaction and show our skills and not worry about being replaced with it.
Well, and you said something earlier in the interview too that I thought was really interesting about the silver tsunami. So we've got baby boomers who are aging. And I traditionally hear, folks in sort of the senior care, the home health care space talk about this, and how, demand is high and it's increasing, and there's sort of a gap in, what they're able to provide and what the demand is for it. But you're kind of coming at it from a different angle. These same baby boomers are kind of aging out of their businesses now. They're getting to the point where they want to retire, they want to slow down, and there isn't that succession plan in place. And so that creates an opportunity for a group like Merit to come in and, give those folks a nice retirement and be able to carry that legacy business on.
Totally. Yep. And that, that number will continue to grow for the next few years, and creates a great opportunity for us to show what we can do, and hopefully build a relationship with some of those sellers and be able to enhance what they've built on.
Ryan, I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.